The hot summer sun beat down on Marcus and Michael Johnson as they helped their father unload the last of their boxes from the moving truck. Sweat dripped down their faces as they carried heavy furniture into their new home on Maple Street in the small town of Riverdale. The twins, both 16 years old with the same dark curly hair and strong build, looked exactly alike except for a small scar above Marcus's right eyebrow. "This is the last one, Dad," Michael said, setting down a box-marked kitchen on the counter. Their father, James Johnson, nodded with a tired smile. He was a tall, strong man with kind eyes that had seen much in his 40 years of life. After 20 years in the military, he now worked as a physical therapist at the local hospital. "Thanks, boys. Why don't you take a break and explore the neighborhood a bit?" The twins looked at each other. They didn't need words to communicate after sharing 16 years of life together. Both felt the same mix of excitement and worry about their new town. "Sure, Dad," Marcus replied. "We won't go far." As the twins walked down the tree-lined street of their new neighborhood, they noticed the stairs. An old woman watering her flowers stopped and watched them pass. A man washing his car suddenly became very focused on scrubbing the same spot over and over. Two children playing ball in their front yard ran inside when the twins walked by. "Friendly place," Marcus said in a low voice, his eyes scanning the houses. Michael shrugged. "Give it time. It's different from the city." That was an understatement. Coming from Chicago to this small town where they were clearly the only black family around was a big change. Their father had moved them here after their mother died last year from cancer. He said they needed a fresh start, somewhere quiet where he could raise his boys with good schools and safe streets. The twins walked to the end of the street where a small park sat empty, except for a group of teenage boys hanging out by the basketball court. There were 5 of them, all looking to be about 17 or 18 and all white. The tallest one, a muscular boy with short blonde hair, nudged his friends when he spotted the twins. "Well, well," he called out loud enough for the twins to hear. "Looks like we got some new neighbors, boys." Marcus tensed up, his hands automatically forming loose fists at his sides. Michael placed a gentle hand on his brother's shoulder. "Not worth it," he whispered. "Let's head back." But the group of boys was already walking toward them. The tall blonde one seemed to be the leader. He wore a Letterman jacket despite the heat and had a cocky smile that didn't reach his cold blue eyes. "You guys lost?" the blonde boy asked, crossing, his arms over his chest. "This is a private park." Michael, always the calmer of the twins, spoke first. "The sign says Riverdale Public Park. We just moved in down the street." The blonde boy's smile disappeared. "I'm Brad Thompson. My dad is the mayor of this town, which means what I say goes." He stepped closer, towering over the twins by a few inches. "And I say this park isn't for your kind." Marcus took a step forward, but Michael held him back. Both brothers knew they could easily handle Brad and his friends if a fight broke out. After all, they had been training in mixed martial arts since they were 6 years old. Their father, a former combat instructor in the Army Special Forces, had taught them everything he knew. The twins were actually junior state champions back in Chicago, though no one in Riverdale knew this. They had trophies packed away in boxes that still needed unpacking. They had fought in tournaments against boys much bigger and stronger than Brad Thompson. But they also remembered their father's most important lesson. Fighting is always the last option, never the first. "We don't want any trouble," Michael said calmly. "We're just checking out the neighborhood." Brad laughed and looked at his friends. "Hear that? They don't want trouble." He turned back to the twins with a sneer. "Maybe you should have thought about that before moving to our town." One of Brad's friends, a skinny boy with spiky black hair, spoke up. "My cousin says a black family moved into old Mrs. Wilson's house on Maple. That you guys?" Marcus nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving Brad's face. "That's us. I'm Marcus. This is my brother Michael." "Well, Marcus and Michael," Brad said, stepping even closer until he was just inches away from Marcus's face. "Let me give you some friendly advice. This town has a certain way of doing things. People know their place. And if you don't learn yours quickly, We'll be happy to teach you." The threat hung in the air like the summer heat. Marcus could feel his heart pounding in his chest, not from fear, but from the effort it took to stay calm. He had promised his father no more fighting after what happened at their old school. That incident had almost gotten them expelled just months before graduation. It wasn't their fault. They had been defending a smaller kid from bullies, but the principal didn't see it that way. Michael, sensing his brother's struggle, spoke up again. "Thanks for the welcome. We should get back now. Our dad is waiting." Brad stepped back with a smirk. "Sure, run home to Daddy, but remember what I said. This is Thompson territory." As the twins turned to walk away, one of Brad's friends called, "Out. See you at school on Monday, new kids, your school." They hadn't even thought about that yet. If these were the kind of kids they'd be dealing with at Riverdale High, it was going to be a long senior year. The twins walked home in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. When they reached their house, their father was on the front porch, talking to a middle-aged black woman from across the street. She smiled warmly as the twins approached. "These must be your boys," she exclaimed. "My, they look exactly alike." James Johnson nodded proudly. "Yes, this is Marcus and Michael. Boys, this is Mrs. Porter. She's lived across the street for 30 years. Call me Doris, please," the woman said, extending her hand to each twin in turn. "It's so nice to have some new faces in the neighborhood." After exchanging pleasantries, Mrs. Porter lowered her voice. "Now I should warn you boys about some of the kids around here. There's a group led by the mayor's son that can be difficult. We met them," Marcus said flatly. Mrs. Porter sighed. "I was afraid of that. Brad Thompson thinks he owns this town because his father is the mayor. He's been trouble since he was in diapers." "Did they give you boys a hard time?" James asked, his face growing serious. The twins exchanged a look. "Nothing we couldn't handle, Dad," Michael assured him. "Just some talk." James studied his sons' faces carefully. After raising them alone for the past year, he knew when they weren't telling him everything. "Remember what we talked about before moving here? This is a fresh start for all of us." "We know, Dad," the twins said in unison. That night, after dinner, the twins sat on the front porch steps watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The neighborhood was quiet except for the distant sound of a lawnmower and the chirping of crickets. "Do you think Mom would have liked it here?" Michael asked softly. Marcus thought about their mother, with her bright smile and fierce love for her family. She had been their biggest supporter, never missing a tournament, always cheering the loudest from the sidelines. "I don't know. Maybe not at first, but she always said home is where family is." Michael nodded. "I miss her." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence for a while longer, until their father called them in to help unpack the kitchen boxes. As they worked, James told them about their new school and his new job at the hospital. He seemed happy and hopeful about their fresh start, and the twins didn't have the heart to tell him about Brad Thompson and his threats. Later that night, as they set up their beds in their shared bedroom, Marcus broke the silence. "We should be ready for Monday." Michael knew exactly what his brother meant. "Dad said no fighting." "I know what Dad said," Marcus replied, laying out his clothes for the next day. "But we should be ready anyway. Those guys aren't going to leave us alone. Just because we ask nicely." Michael couldn't argue with that logic. "Fine. But we follow Dad's rules. Fighting is the last option." "Agreed," Marcus said, holding out his fist. Michael bumped it with his own, their lifelong sign of agreement. As they turned out the lights and lay in their beds, both twins stared at the unfamiliar ceiling, thinking about what Monday would bring. They had faced bullies before, but something about Brad Thompson felt different. There was a meanness in his eyes that went beyond typical teenage attitude. Whatever happened, they would face it together. They always had. And if Brad Thompson and his friends discovered what the Johnson twins were capable of, well, that would be their mistake. Monday morning came too soon. The alarm clock rang at 6:30 a.m. and Marcus hit the snooze button twice before Michael finally pulled the blanket off him. "Get up," Michael said, already dressed in jeans and a plain blue t-shirt. Dad made breakfast. Marcus groaned but got out of bed. First day jitters? He asked, noticing how his brother kept checking his backpack over and over. Michael shrugged. Just want to be prepared. Downstairs, their father had made a big breakfast of eggs, bacon, and toast. James Johnson believed in starting important days with a full stomach. As the twins ate, he went over the plan for the day. I'll drive you to school this morning, but you'll take the bus home, he said, pouring coffee into his travel mug. I finish work at 7 tonight. There's money on the counter for pizza if you get hungry before I'm back. The twins nodded, eating quietly. Their father studied them for a moment. He knew his sons well enough to sense when something was bothering them. Everything okay? He asked. The twins exchanged a quick look before Marcus spoke. Yeah, Dad. Just nervous about the new school. James nodded. That's normal. But remember, you two can handle anything together. He paused, then added in a more serious tone, and remember our deal. No fighting unless it's absolutely necessary for self-defense. I don't want any calls from the principal on your first day, we remember, both twins said at the same time. The drive to Riverdale High School took only 10 minutes. It was a medium-sized brick building with a big sign out front that read, Home of the Riverdale Ravens. Students were hanging out in groups in the parking lot and on the front steps. As James pulled up to the drop-off area, he gave his sons one last piece of advice. Be yourselves, make friends, and look out for each other. The twins grabbed their backpacks and got out of the car. See you tonight, Dad, Michael called as they walked toward the school entrance. Almost immediately, they felt eyes on them. Conversations stopped as they passed. People whispered behind hands. Feels like we're in a zoo, Marcus muttered. Ignore it, Michael replied. Let's find the office and get our schedules. The main office was just inside the entrance. A friendly-looking woman with gray hair sat at the front desk. She smiled when the twins walked in. You must be the Johnson boys, she said. I'm Mrs. Davis, the school secretary. We've been expecting you. She handed them each a folder with their class schedules, a map of the school, and some forms for their father to sign. You have most classes together, except for 5th period. Marcus, you have art, while Michael has music. The twins thanked her and left the office to find their first class, which was English, with Mrs. Peterson in room 203. As they walked through the crowded hallway, they heard a familiar voice. Well, look who it is, the new kids. Brad Thompson was leaning against a locker surrounded by the same group of boys from the park. He pushed himself off the locker and stepped into the twins' path. Didn't think I'd see you so soon, Brad said, with a smirk. Thought maybe you'd be too scared to show up. Michael kept his face calm. We're just trying to get to class. English with Peterson? Brad asked, glancing at the schedule in Michael's hand. His smile grew wider. What a coincidence. That's where we're headed too. The warning bell rang, and students began hurrying to their classrooms. Brad and his friends fell into step behind the twins as they walked to room 203. Marcus could feel them close behind, like wolves following prey. He took a deep breath and reminded himself of his father's words. Mrs. Peterson was a small woman with short blonde hair and bright red glasses. She smiled as the twins entered the classroom. You must be Marcus and Michael. Welcome to Riverdale High. Please take those 2 empty seats in the middle row. The twins sat down, aware that Brad and his friends had taken seats right behind them. As Mrs. Peterson began taking attendance, a small folded piece of paper landed on Michael's desk. He opened it carefully. Watch your backs, it read. Michael showed it to Marcus, who frowned but said nothing. They both turned their attention to Mrs. Peterson, who was now talking about the book they would be reading this semester, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. It's a story about prejudice, justice, and standing up for what's right even when it's difficult, she explained, handing out copies of the book. I think you'll find it very relevant. Brad snickered from the back row. Yeah, very relevant, he whispered loudly enough for the twins to hear. The rest of the morning went by without major incidents. The twins had math and then history before lunch. In each class they found Brad or at least one of his friends watching them. It was clear they weren't going to be left alone. When the lunch bell rang, The twins followed the crowd to the cafeteria. They got in line for food, trying to ignore the stares and whispers around them. "This is getting old fast," Marcus said as he put a slice of pizza on his tray. "Just ignore it," Michael replied, choosing a sandwich instead. "It'll get better." They found an empty table in the corner of the cafeteria and sat down to eat. They had just started their lunch when a girl with curly red hair approached their table. "Hi," she said with a friendly smile. "I'm Emma. You're in my English class." The twins nodded, surprised by the friendly face. Emma didn't wait for an invitation but sat down across from them. "Don't mind Brad and his goons," she said, opening her lunch bag. "They're jerks to everyone, not just new kids." "Seems like they have a special interest in us," Marcus replied. Emma shrugged. "Brad's dad is the mayor, so he thinks he runs the damn school. His friends are just as bad. Derek's the one with spiky hair. Tyler's the big guy with the red backpack, and Matt's the skinny one with glasses. You know a lot about them," Michael observed. Emma's smile faded a bit. "They used to bully my brother pretty bad last year. He was a freshman. They made his life hell until my parents finally transferred him to a private school." The twins exchanged a look. They didn't like bullies, especially ones who picked on kids younger than themselves. "I'm sorry about your brother," Michael said. Emma nodded. "Just be careful, okay? They like to catch new kids alone after school, usually by the back parking lot." Just then, Brad and his friends entered the cafeteria. Brad spotted the twins sitting with Emma and frowned. He said something to his friends, and they all laughed while looking at the twins' table. "Ignore them," Emma advised, taking a bite of her apple. The twins tried to enjoy their lunch and conversation with Emma, who turned out to be friendly and funny. She told them about the teachers, which ones were strict and which ones were easy. She also mentioned that she was on the school newspaper and invited them to join. "Do you guys play any sports?" she asked. "We used to do martial arts at our old school," Marcus said carefully. "Really? What kind?" "Mixed martial arts," Michael explained. "Our dad taught us. He was in the military." Emma's eyes widened with interest. "That's cool. We don't have an MMA club here, but there's wrestling. You should try out," the twins promised. To think about it. As lunch ended, Emma walked with them to their next class, Science with Mr. Roberts. Brad and his friends were already there, and they glared at the twins as they entered. "Looks like you made a friend," Brad called out. "Better be careful, Emma. You don't want to hang out with the wrong crowd." Emma rolled her eyes. "I already avoid the wrong crowd, Brad. That's why I'm not friends with you." Some students laughed, and Brad's face turned red with anger. He whispered something to Derek, who nodded with a nasty smile. The rest of the day passed quickly. When the final bell rang, the twins went to their lockers to get their books for homework. They had almost forgotten Emma's warning until they saw Brad and his friends waiting by the main exit. "Let's take the side door," Michael suggested. They changed direction and headed for the exit near the gym, but as they pushed open the door, they found Derek and Matt waiting outside. "Going somewhere?" Derek asked, blocking their path. Marcus looked around and saw that Brad and Tyler were now coming up behind them. They were trapped between two groups of bullies. "We don't want trouble," Michael said calmly. Brad laughed. "Too bad, because trouble wants you." The twins stood back to back as Brad and his friends closed in around them. 6 against 2 weren't good odds for normal kids, but Marcus and Michael weren't normal kids. Years of training had prepared them for situations like this. Still, they remembered their father's words. "Last chance to walk away," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the threat surrounding them. Brad laughed. "You hear that, boys? They think we're going to walk away." He cracked his knuckles and stepped closer. "No teachers around now. Just us." Michael spoke in a low voice only his brother could hear. "Remember Dad's rules. Defend, don't attack. No one gets seriously hurt." Marcus nodded slightly. They had trained for this many times with their father. The goal was always the same: end the fight quickly with minimal damage to everyone involved. "Get them!" Brad shouted, and he threw the first punch aimed at Marcus's face. What happened next surprised everyone except the twins. Marcus didn't even seem to move, yet somehow Brad's fist missed completely. The momentum of his failed punch sent Brad stumbling forward, where Marcus simply stuck out his foot. Brad tripped and fell face first onto the concrete. At the same time, Derek and Matt rushed at Michael from behind. Without looking, Michael dropped to one knee and spun around, causing both boys to trip over him. They crashed into each other and fell in a heap of tangled limbs. Tyler, the biggest of Brad's friends, charged at Marcus like a bull. Marcus waited until the last second, then stepped aside while gently guiding Tyler's shoulder. The large boy's momentum carried him straight into the wall. The remaining two boys looked at each other, then at the twins who hadn't even broken a sweat. They backed away slowly. "What the hell?" one of them muttered. Brad got up from the ground, his face red, with anger and embarrassment. His nose was bleeding slightly from the fall. "You're dead," he spat. "Both of you." He lunged at Marcus again, this time more carefully. Marcus blocked Brad's punch with his forearm, then used Brad's forward momentum to flip him over his hip. Brad landed on his back with a loud thud, the air knocked out of his lungs. Michael was handling the other three boys who had gotten back to their feet. He moved with the same fluid grace as his brother, never throwing a punch, only redirecting their attacks. Derek swung wildly and found himself flipped onto his back next to Brad. Matt tried to grab Michael from behind, but Michael simply bent forward, sending Matt flying over his shoulder. Tyler, despite his earlier crash into the wall, came back for more. He charged at Marcus again, but this time Marcus sidestepped and stuck out his foot. Tyler tripped and fell hard. In less than a minute, all 5 of Brad's friends were on the ground, groaning in pain or trying to catch their breath. None of them had landed a single hit on the twins. And most surprisingly to the bullies, the twins hadn't thrown a single punch. "What's going on here?" The deep voice came from the doorway where Coach Williams, the football coach, stood with his arms crossed. His eyes widened as he took in the scene. 5 boys on the ground and the Johnson twins standing calmly in the middle. "Did you two do this?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Before the twins could answer, a new voice joined in. "They were defending themselves, Coach." Emma stepped out from behind a nearby tree, her phone in her hand. "I recorded the whole thing. Brad and his friends cornered them and attacked first. The twins just protected themselves." Coach Williams frowned and looked at Brad, who was now sitting up and holding his bleeding nose. "Thompson, is this true?" Brad glared at Emma, then at the twins. "They jumped us," he lied. "We were just walking out and they attacked us for no reason." "That's not what the video shows," Emma said, holding up her phone. "Want to see it, Coach?" Coach Williams nodded, and Emma played the video. It clearly showed Brad throwing the first punch and the twins only defending themselves without attacking. When it ended, the coach's face was stern. "Principal's office. All of you. Now." In Principal Harris's office, the 7 boys sat in a row of chairs while Emma stood off to the side with her phone. Principal Harris was a tall, serious woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She watched Emma's video with a deep frown. "This is very serious," she said when the video ended. "Fighting on school grounds is strictly against our rules." She looked at Brad and his friends. "But what's even more serious is lying about what happened." Brad started to speak, but Principal Harris held up her hand to stop him. "The video is clear, Mr. Thompson. You and your friends attacked the Johnson brothers who only defended themselves." She turned to the twins. "Though I must say, you two showed remarkable skill." "Our father taught us," Michael explained. "He was a combat instructor in the military. He always said fighting should be the last option, and we should never hurt anyone more than necessary." Principal Harris nodded. "Well, your father taught you well." She turned back to Brad. "As for you and your friends, I'm suspending all of you for 3 days, and you'll have detention for 2 weeks after that." "What?" Brad exclaimed. "But they were defending themselves," Principal Harris finished for him. "The video shows that clearly. You're lucky they didn't press charges for assault." Brad glared at the twins with pure hatred in his eyes. "My father will hear about this." Principal Harris wasn't impressed. "Yes, I'm sure he will, since I'll be calling him myself." She turned to the twins. "You two can go. But please, try to Avoid situations like this in the future. Yes, ma'am, the twins said together. As they left the office, Emma was waiting for them in the hallway. That was amazing, she said, her eyes wide with excitement. Where did you learn to fight like that? It's not fighting, Michael corrected her. It's self-defense. Our dad started teaching us when we were 6. Well, whatever it is, it was incredible, Emma said. No one has ever stood up to Brad like that before. The 3 of them walked out of the school together. The parking lot was almost empty now, with just a few cars left. Do you need a ride home? Emma asked. My mom is picking me up in a few minutes. The twins shook their heads. We're supposed to take the bus, Marcus said. But thanks. Well, I think you missed it, Emma pointed out. But my mom won't mind dropping you off. While they waited for Emma's mother, they sat on a bench near the front of the school. Emma had a lot of questions about their martial arts training, and the twins answered as best they could without bragging. So you were really champions back in Chicago? Emma asked, impressed. Marcus nodded. Junior state champions 2 years in a row. Why didn't you tell anyone? Emma wondered. Michael shrugged. We're not here to show off. Dad always says martial arts is about discipline and self-control, not about looking tough. A blue minivan pulled up, and a woman who looked like an older version of Emma waved from the driver's seat. That's my mom, Emma said, standing up. Come on, I'll introduce you. Mrs. Carter was friendly and didn't ask too many questions about why the twins had missed their bus. She dropped them off at their house with a cheerful, "See you tomorrow." As they walked up to their front door, Marcus turned to his brother. Do you think Brad will leave us alone now? Michael shook his head. No way. We embarrassed him in front of his friends. He's going to be even more angry now. Great, Marcus sighed as he unlocked the door. Just what we need. Their house was quiet and empty. Their father wouldn't be home for another 2 hours. The twins put their backpacks down and went to the kitchen to find something to eat. As they made sandwiches, they discussed what had happened. We didn't break Dad's rules, Michael pointed out. We didn't throw a single punch. True, Marcus agreed. But I don't think he's going to be happy when the principal calls him. Maybe she won't, Michael suggested hopefully. We didn't get in trouble. But just as they finished eating, the phone rang. Marcus looked at the caller ID and grimaced. It's the school. They looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. Their father was not going to be happy. Marcus answered the phone with a nervous hello, while Michael stood close by, trying to hear. Is this the Johnson residence? A woman's voice asked. Yes, ma'am, Marcus replied. This is Principal Harris from Riverdale High. Is Mr. Johnson available? He's still at work, Marcus explained. He'll be home around 7. There was a pause on the other end. I see. Well, could you ask him to call me when he gets home? It's about what happened after school today. Yes, ma'am, I'll tell him, Marcus promised. After hanging up, the twins looked at each other with worried expressions. Their father had been clear about fighting at school, and even though they had only defended themselves, they weren't sure how he would react. Maybe we should just tell him before he calls the principal back, Michael suggested. Marcus nodded. Yeah, that's probably best. They spent the next 2 hours doing homework and worrying about their father's reaction. When they finally heard his car pull into the driveway, both twins went to the door to meet him. James Johnson looked tired after a long day at the hospital, but he smiled when he saw his sons. Hey boys, how was the first day? The twins exchanged a glance before Marcus spoke. Dad, we need to tell you something. James's smile faded as he set down his bag. What happened? The twins took turns explaining about Brad Thompson and his friends, the threats throughout the day, and finally the ambush after school. They were careful to emphasize that they had only defended themselves and hadn't thrown a single punch. And Emma recorded the whole thing on her phone, Michael added. The principal saw it and suspended Brad and his friends for 3 days, plus gave them 2 weeks of detention. James listened without interrupting. When they finished, he was quiet for a long moment. The twins waited nervously for his reaction. Did anyone get hurt? He finally asked. Just some bruises, Marcus said. Brad got a bloody nose, but that was from falling on his face. James nodded slowly. And you followed the rules? Defend, don't attack? Yes, sir, both twins said together. And Principal Harris wants me to call her? Marcus nodded. Yes, she called earlier. James sighed and ran a hand over his face. All right, I'll call her now. You two start dinner. While the twins heated up leftover chicken and made a salad, they could hear their father on the phone in the living room. They couldn't make out his words, but his tone sounded serious. When he finally came into the kitchen, his expression was hard to read. Well? Michael asked anxiously. Principal Harris showed me the video that your friend Emma took, James said, sitting down at the table. She sent it to my email. The twins waited, holding their breath. You did well, James finally said, his face softening into a small smile. You protected yourselves without excessive force. I'm proud of you both. The twins let out a sigh of relief. So we're not in trouble? Marcus asked. No, you're not in trouble, James assured them. But Principal Harris is concerned that this might not be the end of it. Brad Thompson's father is the mayor, and he's known for protecting his son. What does that mean? Michael asked. James shrugged. It means be careful. Mayor Thompson might try to make this into something it's not. The next day at school, the twins noticed that Brad and his friends were missing, as expected due to their suspension. The day was much more peaceful without them around. Emma met the twins at their lockers before first period. You guys are famous. Now, she told them with a grin. Everyone's talking about how you took down Brad and his crew. Marcus frowned. We didn't take them down. We just defended ourselves. Well, that's not how people are telling it, Emma replied. The story gets bigger every time someone tells it. I heard one freshman say you knocked out all 6 guys with 1 kick each. Michael laughed. That's ridiculous. I know, Emma agreed. But you have to admit, it was pretty impressive. Where did you learn those moves? As they walked to class, the twins told Emma more about their training with their father. They explained how they had started with basic self-defense when they were young, then gradually learned more advanced techniques as they got older. Our dad believes in being able to protect yourself, but also in using the least amount of force necessary, Michael explained. That's cool, Emma said. My dad just taught me how to use pepper spray. Throughout the day, other students approached the twins to ask about the fight. Some wanted to know if they gave lessons. Others just wanted to congratulate them on standing up to Brad. The twins tried to downplay the whole thing, but it was clear they had become overnight celebrities at Riverdale High. After school, Emma invited them to join her and some friends at the local pizza place. It's where everyone hangs out, she explained. You should come. The twins agreed and called their father to let him know where they would be. The pizza place, called Mario's, was just a few blocks from the school. It was already crowded with students when they arrived. Emma introduced the twins to her friends. Javier, a tall boy who played basketball, Lily, a quiet girl with glasses who was on the debate team, and Tyler, a friendly boy with freckles who played in the school band. They all welcomed the twins warmly. Is it true you guys are like ninjas or something? Tyler asked excitedly. The twins laughed. No, we just know some self-defense, Marcus explained. Well, whatever it is, it's awesome, Javier said. Brad's been bullying kids for years. It's about time someone stood up to him. As they ate pizza and talked, the twins began to relax. For the first time since moving to Riverdale, they felt like they might actually fit in. These kids didn't seem to care about the color of their skin, only that they were nice people who had stood up to a bully. But their peaceful afternoon was interrupted when the door to Mario's opened, and Mayor Thompson walked in. He was a tall man with the same blonde hair as his son, though his was starting to gray at the temples. He wore an expensive suit and had a cold look in his eyes. The restaurant grew quiet as Mayor Thompson scanned the room. When his eyes landed on the twins, his face hardened. He walked directly to their table. You must be the Johnson boys, he said, his voice falsely pleasant. The twins nodded, suddenly tense. Emma and her friends watched nervously. I'd like a word with you. Outside. It wasn't a request. Marcus and Michael looked at each other, then stood up. "We'll be right back," Michael told their friends. Outside, Mayor Thompson dropped his friendly act. His face was red with anger as he pointed a finger at the twins. "I don't know what lies you told the principal, but my son says you attacked him and his friends for no reason." "That's not what happened, sir," Marcus said calmly. "Your son and his friends cornered us after school. We only defended ourselves." "My son has a broken nose," Mayor Thompson nearly shouted, "which he got from falling after he tried to punch me," Marcus replied, still keeping his voice level. Mayor Thompson's eyes narrowed. "Listen to me very carefully. This is my town. My family has lived here for generations. You and your father are not welcome here. If you know what's good for you, you'll transfer to another school." Michael stepped forward. "With all due respect, sir, we have every right to be at Riverdale High, and there's video evidence of what really happened yesterday." "Videos can be manipulated," Mayor Thompson said dismissively, "and accidents can happen, especially to people who aren't wanted here." The threat was clear. The twins stood their ground, neither backing down nor showing anger. "Is that all, sir?" Marcus asked politely. Mayor Thompson's face grew even redder. "This isn't over," he warned, before turning and walking to his expensive car parked nearby. The twins watched him drive away, then looked at each other with concern. "That doesn't sound good," Michael said quietly. "No, it doesn't," Marcus agreed. "We should tell Dad." When they went back inside, their friends were full of questions. "What did he say?" Emma asked anxiously. The twins didn't want to worry their new friends, so they downplayed the mayor's threats. "Just the usual stay away from my son stuff," Marcus said with a shrug. But as they finished their pizza and talked with their friends, both twins couldn't stop thinking about Mayor Thompson's words. This wasn't just about Brad anymore. This was about a powerful man who didn't want them in his town. Later that night, they told their father about the encounter. James Johnson listened with a serious expression. "I was afraid of this," he said when they finished. "Mayor Thompson has a reputation for protecting his son, no matter what he does." "What should we do, Dad?" Michael asked. James thought for a moment. "For now, we document everything. If anything happens, we need evidence." He looked at his sons with concern. "And you two stay together. Don't go anywhere alone until this blows over." "Do you think it will blow over?" Marcus asked. "There," Father sighed. "I hope so, son, I really hope so." 3 peaceful days passed without Brad and his friends at school. The twins enjoyed their new friendships with Emma and her group. They sat together at lunch, helped each other with homework, and even made plans to go to the movies on Saturday. For the first time since moving to Riverdale, Marcus and Michael felt like they might belong. But Thursday morning, everything changed. Brad and his friends returned from their suspension, and they were out for revenge. Brad's nose was still swollen and slightly crooked, making him look even angrier than before. The twins noticed the glares as soon as they walked into English class. Brad and Derek sat in the back row, whispering and staring daggers at them. The twins ignored them and focused on Mrs. Peterson's lesson about To Kill a Mockingbird. The character of Atticus Finch stands up for what's right, even when the whole town is against him, Mrs. Peterson explained. He knows defending Tom Robinson will make him unpopular, but he does it anyway because it's the right thing to do. Marcus and Michael exchanged a look, both thinking about their own situation. Like Tom Robinson in the book, they were being judged for the color of their skin rather than their actions. After class, as they walked to their lockers, Brad deliberately bumped into Marcus, hard enough to make him drop his books. "Watch where you're going," Brad sneered. Marcus calmly picked up his books without responding. Michael stood close by, ready to step in if needed. But Brad just laughed and walked away with his friends. "They're planning something," Michael said quietly as they walked to their next class. "I know," Marcus agreed. "We need to be extra careful." Throughout the day, Brad and his friends followed the twins, always staying just far enough away to avoid getting in trouble. They made threatening gestures when teachers weren't looking and whispered insults as they passed in the hallway. At lunch, Emma noticed the tension. "Don't let them get to you," she advised. "That's what they want." We're not worried about Brad, Michael told her. It's his father we're concerned about. Emma frowned. Mayor Thompson? What did he do? The twins explained the confrontation outside. Mario's Pizza. Emma and their other friends looked worried. The mayor has a lot of power in this town, Javier said, shaking his head. He's not someone you want as an enemy. But we didn't do anything wrong, Marcus pointed out. We just defended ourselves. Right and wrong don't always matter to people, like the Thompsons, Lily said quietly. They care about power and saving face. After school, the twins headed to the bus carefully, making sure to stay in crowded areas. They didn't see Brad or his friends anywhere, which made them even more suspicious. This doesn't feel right, Marcus said as they waited at the bus stop. Where did they go? They got their answer when they got off the bus near their home. Brad's car was parked down the street, with Brad behind the wheel and his 5 friends inside. As soon as the twins stepped off the bus, the car's engine roared to life. Run! Michael shouted, and the twins sprinted toward their house. The car accelerated, following them down the quiet street. The twins were fast. They had won medals for their speed at tournaments, but the car was faster. It pulled alongside them and Brad leaned out the window. Not so tough now, are you? He yelled. The twins kept running, cutting across a neighbor's yard to get away from the car. Brad had to drive around the block to follow them, buying the twins precious time. They were just a few houses away from home when they heard the car again. But this time, something unexpected happened. As Brad's car turned the corner, another car pulled out of a driveway and blocked the road. It was Mrs. Porter, their neighbor, from across the street. You boys get on home now, she called to the twins. I need to have a word with these young men. The twins hesitated, not wanting to leave Mrs. Porter alone with Brad and his friends, but she waved them on. Go on, your father just got home, tell him what's happening. The twins ran the rest of the way home. Their father was just getting out of his car when they reached the driveway, out of breath and sweating. Dad! Marcus called. Brad Thompson and his friends followed us home. They were chasing us in their car. James Johnson's face darkened with anger. Where are they now? Mrs. Porter blocked them with her car, Michael explained, without a word. Their father strode down the street toward where Mrs. Porter had stopped Brad's car. The twins followed close behind. When they reached the scene, Mrs. Porter was standing next to Brad's car taking pictures with her phone. What do you think you're doing? She was saying to Brad. Chasing children in your car? That's criminal behavior, young man. Brad looked much less confident now. We weren't chasing anyone, we were just driving. Don't lie to me, Mrs. Porter said firmly. I've been watching you circle the block for 10 minutes, waiting for those boys to get off the bus. James Johnson stepped forward. Brad Thompson? Brad looked up, his face paling slightly when he saw the twins' father. James Johnson was an imposing figure, tall, muscular, and right now, very angry. Yes, sir, Brad mumbled. I want you to listen, very carefully, James said, his voice low and controlled. If you or your friends ever come near my sons again, I will press charges for harassment, attempted assault, and anything else I can think of. Do you understand me? Brad nodded, unable to meet James's eyes. Good. Now get out of here, James ordered, and don't come back to this neighborhood. Brad started his car and drove away quickly, his friends looking back nervously. James turned to Mrs. Porter with a grateful smile. Thank you for looking out for my boys, Doris. Those Thompson men have been bullies for 3 generations, Mrs. Porter said, shaking her head. Somebody needs to stand up to them. When they got home, James sat the twins down at the kitchen table. This has gone far enough, he said seriously. I'm going to call Principal Harris and report what happened. Today. Do you think that will help? Marcus asked doubtfully. The mayor seems to have a lot of power here. Maybe, maybe not, James admitted. But we're going to do this the right way. We're going to document everything and use the system to protect ourselves. The next day at school, the twins were called to Principal Harris's office. To their surprise, Mayor Thompson was there, along with Brad, who couldn't look them in the eye. Boys, please sit down, Principal Harris said, her face serious. Mayor Thompson cleared his throat. I want to apologize for my son's behavior, he said stiffly. It has been brought to my attention that he has not been honest with me about what happened. The twins exchanged a surprised look. This was not what they had expected. It seems that Mrs. Porter sent her video of yesterday's incident to the local newspaper, Principal Harris explained. They called the mayor for comment this morning. Mayor Thompson's face was red with embarrassment. As the mayor of this town, I cannot condone such behavior. Brad will face appropriate consequences both at home and at school. Brad stared at the floor, his face a mix of anger and humiliation. After the meeting, as the twins walked back to class, Michael nudged his brother. Did that really just happen? Marcus shook his head in disbelief. I guess Mayor Thompson cares more about his image than protecting Brad when there's clear evidence. Word spread quickly through the school about Brad's public scolding. By lunchtime, the balance of power had shifted. Brad and his friends sat alone, avoided by the other students who had once feared them. The twins, meanwhile, found their table, in the cafeteria full of people wanting to sit with them. Emma grinned as she squeezed in next to them. Looks like you guys are the heroes of Riverdale High now. We didn't do anything heroic, Michael insisted. We just stood up for ourselves. Sometimes that's the most heroic thing you can do, Lily pointed out. Over the next few weeks, things changed at Riverdale High. Brad and his friends kept their distance from the twins. Other students who had been bullied found the courage to speak up. Principal Harris started an anti-bullying program, and the twins were asked to help teach a self-defense class after school. At home one evening, as the family ate dinner together, James looked at his sons with pride. Your mother would be so proud of you too, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You stood your ground without compromising who you are. The twins smiled at the mention of their mother. They still missed her every day, but the pain was less sharp now. Do you think we'll stay in Riverdale? Marcus asked. James looked thoughtful. Do you want to? The twins considered the question. They thought about their new friends, about Mrs. Porter and her kindness, about the changes they were helping to make at school. Yeah, Michael said finally. I think we're exactly where we need to be. Marcus nodded in agreement. We're home,